Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to this advisory committee on sustainability. As all of our agendas are very consistent, and I'll ask you to take a moment of reflection. Third item, any disclosure of pecuniary interest and to state the general nature thereof. And I see none. I now have something to read about our meetings and our format. It's about public participation. Members of the public are encouraged to provide the committee with their comments and questions. Presentations must be prearranged with legislative services before the agenda is released. Members of the public who wish to make a deputation about a specific agenda item at the meeting must register in advance with legislative services by 4 p.m. And today being June the 5th, that is June the 4th, by contacting the deputy clerk at meaford.ca or 519-538-1060 extension 1100. Presentations are limited to 10 minutes. Deputations are limited to 5. I ask today, there is no presentations coming forward, and I would look again, and I am believing there are no deputations on our agenda. So the next item is very, very good to do. A general welcome from myself as the chair. I'm Councillor Tony Bell, and I am the chair of this committee. And we're going to do a little go around. This is called the horseshoe, a little go around to each one of you to just state your name so we all know, and maybe just a little background. Councillor Forder and myself, when you folks turned in your, I would like to serve on this this committee, council got to see those that have great interest in our municipality, and you folks, you know, we went through the process, and welcome. I look forward to being the chair of this committee, and what this committee will ultimately do, which in time hopefully will result in something really solid so that we can bring a recommendation before the council that council can get behind, and that this committee can make a change, make something happen. And that's my desire. So without any further ado from myself, sitting by yourself over to my extreme right, if you could introduce yourself and a little bit, maybe why you really wanted to be on this committee, that would be good. Right. Yes.
Yeah, my name's Pat Maloney. I just moved to Meaford in 2021, February, after buying a lot up here in 2016. We used to have a cottage over in Honey Harbor, and I've been in Georgian Bay all my life. And Meaford just, I searched everywhere as far as moving here. And Meaford just, it had all the things we could possibly want as retirees anyway. It's a beautiful downtown. The people are friendly. It's a great community. Yeah, and we're actually honored to be able to live here and participate. It's a great opportunity. So I'll hopefully I can contribute in a positive manner to this committee, and we can, like you say, move forward and get some action done.
Thank you, Pat.
Okay, no problem.
To my immediate right,
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Appreciate that. And I just wanted to welcome everybody here. This is very exciting. I've been very much looking forward to this. My name is Brandon Forder, and I have always been very environmentally conscious with regards to sustainability and preserving our natural resources. And I feel it's important for residents to be active participants in their community if they expect to see any change, particularly for the better. And I was delighted to be appointed to this committee, and also even more delighted to see Councillor Bell as the chair of this committee. And I know he's going to do a heck of a job. So I just want to welcome everybody and look forward to getting started. Thank you.
Yeah. We will go to the far left, please.
So, hello everyone. I'm Leslie Lewis. I've been in Meaford for about 6 years now. I have always been very environmentally conscious, just like Brandon. My credentials, I suppose, in that area, or what I bring, is I've been for 6 years a member of the board of Ontario Nature, and I have been a member of the Grey Bruce Climate Action Committee network, actually, which is a group that's composed of climate action groups in our area. I've been with them for probably about the same, about 6 years now. So I'm delighted to be on this committee. Very grateful that my application was accepted. I'm looking forward to working with everybody in a constructive way to try to make Meaford even more sustainable than it is. Thank you.
Thank you, Leslie. And next.
Thank you very much. My name is Rob Black, and we've lived in the area for about 25 years. I've got two kids heading off to university, making big decisions. Yeah, I've always been interested in nature and the environment as well as you two. I'm very proud to come from a family that has been doing a lot in the province. My brother started an amazing environmental magazine years ago, and that was across the country. My father was instrumental in bringing the Blue Box program to Ontario, and many other things. And now that my kids are going off to university, that's why I'm getting involved now. Now's the time, because I have some time. I'm going to be having some time, so I'm looking forward. And my whole educational background as well is related to geography, biology, environmental studies, all of that sort of stuff. And I've worked for various ministries and national departments as well related to environmental stuff. So.
Well, welcome, Rob. Welcome.
Thank you.
Just your key on your. Thank you. Yep. Incredible.
Hi, thank you very much. So I'm currently in school and I'm working in Kitchener as a funeral director intern. And I'm new to the area. I've been here for about 3 years and I really care about Meaford. And I also want to create a sustainable environment so that I can raise a family here someday, and that my family can have a family, and that this will stay a beautiful place for everyone. So.
Well, thank you, Carmen. And not to center you out, Carmen, but at council, when we were going through how we were going to embrace our residents and those to get involved, our council unanimously wanted to hear a voice of younger persons. And I look forward to hearing from you, bringing an aspect. Most definitely, my engagement with persons much younger than myself, you bring a different view, and it's a view that represents our future. And those are the kinds of things that for someone of my age, I need to listen to. And so I really do extend a very warm welcome to yourself. And not that that's not extended to each and every one of you, but I think I think we all should, the voice of Carmen being younger, I think is just made this committee, Carmen, stronger. So thank you. Thank you. Now, we'll get into some of the meat of today's getting together. I guess I didn't say who I was, taking some things maybe slightly for granted, but I'm Councillor Tony Bell, and I have served on council. This is my third term. I have seen major changes. My first term was in 2014, and I can tell you in 2024, the dynamics of this community and the folks who are now here compared to maybe some of the really old established family names that just seem to carry on literally for generations. The dynamics is changing. People's viewpoints are changing, and you've really got to keep up with what is transpiring around about you in order to be a good representative, as the municipal act says, a voice for the people. And when sustainability was put out and the mayor asked for council members who thought they would do well on something, first of all, I took this on as a challenge because when I think about sustainability, and you can go old school and look it up in a dictionary, and it starts talking about the continuance and the carrying on and the consistency of, and what we've heard here today in opening remarks, even that word by its implications has changed more heavily. This could well be called the Environmental Committee, because that's basically where this is flowing. Not that other things about sustainability, which I hope as the chair, I'll be able to bring some comments forward that you as the committee will be able to build upon. And my real goal, after we have a few meetings under our belts, is that this committee will be able to come together with something and really start putting something together that Brandon and myself and our fellow councillors can say, this sustainability committee's come up with a really solid, good recommendation, and that it won't be difficult for Councillor Brandon and myself to get buy-in from. And if we can do that, this committee's a success. So thank you and welcome you all. Item number 6, I'm going to turn this over to Matt, and he's going to go through. The big heading here is the terms of reference, roles, responsibilities, and oh yes, the code of conduct. So over to you, Mr. Smith.
I get all the fun stuff, can you tell? So just to do a couple of introductions on this side of the table, to my left, Alex Crochet is our acting deputy clerk, and her full-time role is committee and council coordinator. Kirsten Higginson on my right is our project administrator for the pump storage project. You might have heard of that. So we thought she could come along and give you a bit of an update on where the municipality's at with that as part of today's agenda, just to give you something that's a little less dry than unfortunately I might be for the next half hour or so. It's really, really good to see this, because as you all sort of do the introductions, I suddenly realized that this is a group of people who, with the exception of Tony, and I think Brandon and I are about the same, have come to Meaford after me. And that's quite unusual for in this room. So that's a really exciting thing to see, new people coming in and participating and stuff. So thank you for doing this. I'll preempt by saying that, well, my role is as the clerk and director of community services. So I've got a clerk hat on today to do all the sort of official committee type things. But I'm also going to deal with council's priorities for the sustainability pillar when we get to that in a little while. You won't generally see me at these committees. Normally, the main sort of staff resource for it will be our director of engineering or our director of operations. But our director of engineering has just gone on maternity leave, and we haven't replaced her yet. So you get me instead. So hopefully, I can sort of fake it till I make it, and we'll get through what we're talking about. But really looking forward to giving you a bit more information and talking through some of this. So I'll start with the terms of reference, and I'm not going to go into sort of every section of the terms of reference because I'm going to deal with some of it through the code of conduct and the committee orientation as well. But I wanted to sort of lay out how we got here. I think you probably all know that ensuring sustainability is one of council's 4 pillars of their priorities: growing our economy, strengthening our community, investing in infrastructure, and ensuring sustainability. And after lots of discussion, council decided that we were going to establish a committee about each of those pillars because they're kind of big, important parts of what the municipality's work is. And so that is why we're here today. So looking at the mission statement on the terms of reference, we really are talking about we're looking for folks around this table to help us give advice around sustainable growth, land, water, protecting our environment. That might include things like waste, or it might include things like water supply or stormwater, and various other municipal initiatives. The mandate is fairly broad, as we've kind of tried to design these to be. So it says the Ensuring Sustainability Advisory Committee shall advise and assist council on matters relating to municipal initiatives, programmes, public works and processes and bylaws, and shall promote public awareness of the municipality of Meaford's sustainability and climate change programmes and promote the implementation of sustainability measures within the municipality. And I think probably that last little bit is the bit that I think is really good, you know, really sort of giving us some suggestions and some advice on what we can do as a municipality to think about a bit more sustainability and environmental work. I will segue immediately because I think everything else in the terms of reference is really covered in the roles and responsibilities bit. So I know Bill is going to pop that up on the screen. Yes, I should note Bill Noakes is our wonderful AV person in the corner. He's the one that makes us live and makes it all sound good. And so it's also his first time flying solo as well, so you've got to be nice. And I'm no help at all these days. I used to do the technology in these committee meetings, and now it's got far too complicated. There we go. Thank you, Bill. So, as we say, we try and make this as simple as possible, and I'll try and come back to a few different themes, but there are a few things from a municipal point of view that we have to go through. Unfortunately, because we are a municipality, we do have to do things in a certain way. That does mean it might seem a bit bureaucratic at times, and it might seem like I or Alex are being a bit awkward about stuff. But I promise you, we're not. We're just doing what we kind of have to do. So let's start off with. See if I can get this to work. There we go. So I've got a variety of things that I'm going to talk about, a little bit more about the terms of reference and the procedural bylaw that were attached to the agenda, talk a little bit about things like freedom of information and conflict of interest, and then we'll also get into the code of conduct. We are obligated to also give you some accessibility training. We're going to do that at the second meeting because I think you'll have had enough of listening to me just read slides to you by then. And so we'll come back to that next time. So the bylaw that established this committee was passed in February 24. Council finally adopted their strategic priorities in November, I think, and this was kind of the next step of it. So the document that you've seen on the agenda, and I know you were sent as part of the appointment process, has got a bit more detail on some of the meetings and roles and reporting. The other document that we attach to the agenda is our procedural bylaw. And to be honest, if any of you made it through the 34 pages, congratulations. I wrote most of that and I don't remember most of it. So the procedural bylaw is something we have to have. The Municipal Act, which governs all of our activities, says that we must have a procedural bylaw. And basically, it sets out the rules of the game for public meetings and council and so on. In general, most of those rules apply to committees as well, or that's been our choice. Officially, we are not a municipal act committee of council because we only have 2 members of council, not more than half, and not more than half of you are councillors. But we very much treat all of our committees like municipal act committees, which means we have those open meetings and we're live streaming and all of that sort of stuff. Because as a municipality, one of the things I'm really proud to say, both from council and from staff's point of view, is that we're very keen on the openness and transparency of doing these things in the right way. So there are a couple of key headings within the procedural bylaw that you may or may not want to have a bit of a look through at some stage. Part 1, section 3 gives you some definitions, and that talks about things like committees and chair and so on. Section 4 talks about the duties of the chair, which Tony has been studying deeply. Tony, incidentally, can quote municipal act sections and procedural bylaw sections at me much better than I can quote them at him. So, so if we're ever confused, then Tony's the man. The section on closed meetings, I just want to touch on briefly. This committee won't have any closed meetings. As I say, we treat this as if it's a municipal act committee and like council. So there are about 11 different exemptions of when a municipal council can have a closed meeting. That might be because we're talking about very personal information about a member of the public or a member of staff or something. It might be because we're in the depths of negotiations that we need to keep our position secret for now because it would affect our negotiations. It might be because we're selling or purchasing land and we don't want the person buying it or selling it to know how much we're willing to talk about, those kind of things. But in general, you will see on council agendas that probably 95, 98% of our business is done in public. And this committee and all of our committees really won't be dealing with any of the things that meet any of those exemptions. So we will have these meetings in open session. Part 5 gives a bit of information about minutes. The bit I always like to highlight about minutes is that they are not a transcript. Neither Alex nor I are stenographers and do not want to become stenographers. So what we do with minutes, the Municipal Act talks about producing minutes without note or comment, which means we have to be impartial about what it is. So we will put down things like motions and we'll put a very brief summary of what the conversation is about, but we won't attribute comments to individual people because it's the committee that has done it. And it is just kind of a summary of what we've talked about and if there's any next steps for things. The other one to mention is motions and voting. One of the things that you guys will do from time to time, most meetings perhaps, is pass some motions. It'll definitely be approval of minutes and things like that, but then will almost certainly be times when you want to say to council, our advice is that you do something specific. To do that, we have to pass a motion. And so we can record that in the minutes. Motions need a mover and a seconder, and the chair will ask for those. The chair cannot move or second a motion. And then discussion can happen. Normally, we try and make sure the motion's on the table before we have a discussion. In committees, we tend to be a lot more relaxed about that. We tend to have the conversation and figure out what the committee wants to say. Then we'll get the motion together and then we'll pass it on and then we'll get a mover and a seconder and so on. Oftentimes, when you see a staff report coming to tell you about something that's happening, maybe the updates to the Blue Box program, as Rob was talking about, then we will have what's called a recommendation on there. And that generally forms the basis of the motion. The committee can change that completely if they want to, but it's our best professional advice on what we think the situation is. Everybody gets a vote. If you don't vote, it counts as a no. So there are no abstentions in municipal government. Also, which is a bit different from a lot of boards and committees that you might have participated on, the chair gets a vote always. That is oftentimes the chair only votes in boards to break a tie, but that's not true for us. Can you give me a click, Bill? 'Cause it's... Thank you. Oh, and there we go. Apparently I'm moving too fast for myself. So as I say, items need a mover and a seconder to put things on the floor, as we say, or on the table. So if you want to make a motion, or more likely change a motion, you have to propose that through the chair. And so really what you would say is, I'd like to make an amendment to the motion. I'd like to say, I'd like to delete these words and replace them with something else. Or I think we should go with option 2 instead of option 3, and so on. The chair will then summarize that. He may look to one of our team to help with some wording occasionally. And then we'll look for a seconder for the amendment as well. We can talk about the amendment, and then as the slide says, when the chair feels appropriate discussion has been had, and that could be, depends on Tony's mood, you know, it might be short, it might be long. Then we vote on the amendment. And then if something's been amended, we have to go back to the original motion and do that as well. We try and make this pretty simple. It sounds worse than it is.
Yeah.
My rule for all of our meetings, including council, is that does the public understand what we did and how we did it? There is a lot of rules. We use something called Robert's Rules as our sort of procedural Bible, and there are hundreds upon hundreds of rules about the order motions must happen in and what can be discussed and what can't be discussed. And I hate it. I'm not really a traditional clerk, because as I say that. So what we try and do is try and make it work. What do you as a committee want to say? Let's figure out how to say it and get it through, and then just make sure that the public and anybody reading it in 5 years' time knows how we got there. There might occasionally be something that you particularly really strongly want to put on a future agenda. We have a section of our agenda called committee inquiries, which is your opportunity really just to ask questions of either the chair or of staff about something that maybe we've dealt with before, or maybe we haven't dealt with or haven't thought about yet. If there's something really strong that you want to make sure we have a proper conversation about, you can do what we call a notice of motion at that point. And what I'd encourage is, if you're thinking about that, drop Alex a line or give Alex a call, and she can kind of talk you through what that looks like and if that makes sense for the particular subject. The one thing I did not mention about motions and voting is that a tie is lost. So if we are, as we are today, 6 people rather than the normal 7, if it comes out at 3-3, then that loses the vote. Again, because we're a committee and we're not council, because we're making recommendations to council, we'll try and do things collaboratively so we get to something that we can get to. I'm not imagining we're going to be dealing with massively controversial things that you'll be very fiercely against each other on. So we will try and make that work. All voting is by a show of hands. There's no secret ballots in municipal life. So once we get to that, we'll ask for a raise of hands. The chair will say all in favour, raise your hand if you are, and then he'll say those against, and then do a quick count up. One of the new things that we're doing with this year's batch of committees, which is quite exciting, is we're adding what we call an agenda review meeting. I've been doing this with the mayor and deputy mayor for council meetings for as many years as I've been doing this, which is basically before an agenda is published, I sit down with the mayor and deputy mayor and talk to them about the staff reports that have been written and talk about what's going to be on the agenda. So they've got a heads up and know what the meeting might sound like, might look like, and so on. We're going to do something similar to that for these committee meetings now, but a little bit further in advance so that you guys get the opportunity to help us set the agenda a bit. So generally, meeting agendas are always published a week before the meeting, so last Wednesday. So 2 Wednesdays ago, Alex hosted a meeting with the chair and I, and unfortunately, whoever was meant to be, Jennifer, wasn't able to be with us that day. But it will be the chair and a rotating member of the committee will be invited to come along to those meetings and chat about what staff are proposing to put on the agenda, whether there's any big items that the committee wants to talk about, and how that might go. So I think that's a nice way to keep us all engaged, and hopefully we can make sure that we're then having really good content that fits with what you guys are interested in. We've rattled through a fair bit of the agenda already, and Tony did an excellent job at. Why this doesn't work? No, it doesn't. You've all got computers pretty much with you, and I know you've got things, so so I'll just keep talking. And the call to order, again, some of these formalities we just do. The moment of reflection, as the Councillor Bell said, is just our chance to just sort of take a bit of a pause before we get into things, because we're all running around doing lots of different things and coming in from different parts of life, and so just gives us a moment to think about what we're doing. Pecuniary interest is basically a situation where you as a committee member would benefit in some way or other from the conversation that you're having. Pecuniary means a financial interest, but it also applies to general interests as well. So it's unlikely that that will become a thing for a committee, because again, you're not making decisions, you're advising council, and I don't think that there's too much that would be connected. But if, for instance, somebody came in to do a presentation who potentially the municipality could purchase something from, and you were a part owner of that company, we'd ask you to declare an interest in that, and then you'd have to leave the room during that part of the conversation, and so on. If you ever think that there is anything like that coming up, then please reach out to us. Technically, municipal staff aren't allowed to give you advice on conflicts of interest, but we're pretty good at giving you theoretical advice in hypothetical situations. And if we really need to, we have something called an integrity commissioner, which we can pass you on to, who can make a sort of a final decision on things. Councillor Bell read out the bit about public participation. We'll often have presentations, I think, from various different things, and sometimes there will be deputations if there's a particular subject that members of the community are passionate about that you're going to want to talk about. They'll come in and do that. Obviously, we approve minutes every time, and then we split the agenda up into a couple of different sections. Generally, today's is a little bit different. We have what we call items for consideration, and those are really the things that either council or staff are really coming and saying, help, we need your advice, please tell us something. The second is items for information, and they're normally just things like, we want to give you a bit of a heads up about something, or we think this is interesting, and we'd like to have a conversation about it, but it's something that maybe the government has said, this is what we're definitely doing, and so on. So it's a little no. Unfortunately, at present, we don't have the ability to have hybrid meetings. We have some technological constraints in this building and with our webcasting and so on. That means if you're not able to be here, you could watch the meeting on YouTube if you're somewhere else, but you won't be able to participate. Our plan is that we will have draft minutes posted onto the website by the Monday following the meeting. I suspect it'll either be very fast or a little bit slower this time, because both Alex and I are going on vacation tomorrow, separately, I should add. So it might be a little bit delayed, but there will be minutes there that you'll be able to see, and then we'll come back and do the approval later on. As I say, all of our meetings are live streamed. They're also archived on our YouTube channel. So at meaford.ca/YouTube, people can go and watch them right now. And we've probably got 3 or 4 people watching live, I suspect. That's our general kind of number. But then you can also go back and look at them afterwards. We'll hold all of our meetings here because that is where we can do the live streaming. And you've all been given, I think, the calendar of the meeting dates for the year. We're scheduling every 2 months. If there is something really urgent, then we have the ability to call a special meeting. But again, I don't really see that that'll be likely for this group. Every 2 months gives us the opportunity to sort of go away and do some things and talk to council in between times with some of your recommendations. But it's also because we actually have a committee meeting every single Wednesday afternoon for the remainder of the year, because we've got so many committees now. So we try and keep them to Wednesday afternoons. Meetings can only be held if we have quorum. Quorum is half plus one, so 4 of us, 4 of you. If we know in advance that we can't get quorum for some reason, then we'll either cancel or reschedule the meeting. And the one bit about closed meetings that I have to say, it's less crucial for you guys, but it is still important. You can't discuss business of the committee with a quorum of the committee unless you're here, because that counts as having a private meeting. Again, not something I'm overly concerned about for you guys. What will likely happen is that maybe a couple of you might volunteer to go off and do some research for the next meeting on a particular subject and bring that back. So 2 of you might chat a couple of times in between meetings, but we won't set up we don't do things like subcommittees or anything like that, just to keep that open meeting stuff going. You've already figured out that you're all sitting in the horseshoe and that you've got microphones. The only presentations that we put on the screens, and again, hopefully we'll make sure that works, are the ones that are listed in the agenda. If people come in with deputations, then they just do a verbal deputation. Okay, I'm nearly there, I promise, at least for this section.
Hey, Matt.
Yeah.
Thank you for what you've done. There's certainly a lot for all of the folks to take in, like with all of the advisory committees. Don't let it seem to yourselves that it may be overwhelming. I'm going to tell you my experience with my first mentor, who is the former mayor, Barb Klumpus. When I first became a council member, one of the ingratiating things that Barb did, and Mayor Kentner is doing the same thing. They take their time to acknowledge you and to make sure that you are heard. And just by that simple raising of your hand, and they're both good at that. And I know Councillor Forder can say the same thing. They're always ready to have engagement. And without that, it kind of comes apart. Or you might feel, why do I bother coming? You come to be heard. And I'm telling you, this chair will recognize you and you will get heard and you will have opportunity to speak. And I think what I've determined also is I will refer to you as member Carmen, member Pat. We're members here. I serve on the Grey Sauble Conservation Authority, and the chair refers to us as Director Bell, Director so on, because we direct that organization. So here I would like to just say I'll refer to you as member, and the chair will recognize you. I'll give you lots of latitude on it, because if you ever leave a meeting and you say, gosh, I wish I had have mentioned being here at the meeting is the time to say what's on your mind. And both Mayor Klumpus and current Mayor Kentner are good at that. They give people opportunity, and that's why you volunteered. Your time is important, and this chair recognizes that. So thank you, Matt, and for letting me kind of just have a little blurb there.
I think that dealt with my participation slide perfectly. So thank you, Councillor Bell. Do you want to do the rest? You don't want to talk about MVIPA, I suspect. The Municipal Freedom of Information and Protection of Privacy Act is our legislation that says that generally municipal documents are public. That doesn't mean too much for you. You're not officers of the corporation, so any notes you're taking today or anything you've got on your computer, those are yours. They're nothing to do with me or anybody else. But it does mean that, as I say, the correspondence that comes in and things and your recommendations to council and so on are all public and available if somebody wants to ask for them. The Conflict of Interest Act goes to that bit about the pecuniary interests that I mentioned. It is just to make sure that we are governing as a municipality in a way that's fair and equitable to everybody, that we're doing it in a public and transparent way. So as I say, if you are concerned about anything to do with that, please do let us know and we'll chat through it. There are some general notes on this presentation, which I think my wonderful Deputy Clerk, Margaret, has probably added because they're things that we've experienced. Generally, when we do emails out to the committee, we'll generally do blind copies, but sometimes we forget. Please don't reply all because for two reasons. One is the chain often gets quite long and then we're bombarding everybody's inboxes, but also, again, email conversation kind of turns into a bit of a meeting that we should be having the conversation here rather than over email. If you get any correspondence from anybody that they want to give to the committee, then please send that over to Alex and we'll include that on our agenda. And then there's some resources available on our website. So before I get into code of conduct, does anybody have any questions about all that really exciting procedural stuff? I didn't think so. Sadly, I've delivered this quite a few times over the years. Similarly, I have delivered the Advisory Committee and Volunteer Code of Conduct a fair few times as well. There are a number of slides to this, but I always start with the same sentence. Everything in this is saying, be a decent human being and be nice to each other. That's basically what our Code of Conducts are. So although we have some technical language and some legal things here, this is just about setting some expectations of how we will deal with each other and around the table and public who are coming in. So the Municipal Act says that we have to have a code of conduct for council and boards, and the municipalities had one since actually well before the Municipal Act required it. And back in 2016, council decided to adopt a code of conduct specifically for advisory committees and volunteers. The reason for that is that the council one is pretty extensive. It gets fairly complicated around some of the things that they're allowed to do around gifts and things like that. Don't take them is the general rule. So we wanted to do a slimmed down version for you as advisory committee members. Nothing in the code of conduct is designed to stop you from having an opinion or from giving your opinion, whether it be here or outside. But it is just about how we sort of interact with each other and how we support decisions that are made. The other thing that we have to have according to the Municipal Act is, as I mentioned earlier, an integrity commissioner. They're an independent organisation. We have two people, Janice Atwood-Petrowski and Jeff Abrams, who collectively work for a company called Principles Integrity. And basically, if we get complaints from members of the public about council behaviour or committee member behaviour, then they will investigate to see whether or not there is something that has been a problem with the code of conduct. So, trying to keep this as short as possible, I'll just do the policy statement and the purpose from the volunteer code of conduct. So the policy statement says the municipality Meaford values the important contribution of its volunteers, including advisory committee members, which are appointed by council. Volunteers are expected to carry out their duties in a manner consistent with the municipality Meaford's values of respect, integrity and community. And those three words, respect, integrity and community, are the municipality's values. Council's adopted them, I think, first in 2014 and has reiterated that through each term since. And as I've talked about a little bit, the purpose is to help ensure a common basis of acceptable behaviour and demonstrate how volunteers conduct themselves when we're acting as ambassadors of the municipality. Generally, whenever we talk about those general principles and values, it's respect the decision-making process, be professional, respectful, trust that people are doing what they are best, that they are trying to do and doing the best of their abilities. Encourage respect for the municipality's bylaws and policies. And the particular bit here, and again, you are all lovely people, so I'm sure this is never going to be a problem, but I have to say it out loud, is really that bit about dignity and respect. No abuse or bullying or discrimination. We behave in a friendly manner. What you'll often hear, and certainly from this side of the table, is that we'll say things like through the chair. And that is a very sort of technical way of saying, I'm not going to talk at Pat because Pat and I might get an argument if we have a conversation directly with each other. But if I say through the chair, I think Pat's wrong, then it's friendlier. And it just slows down that dynamic a little bit. It occasionally comes into play at council, not very often, but it's but so some of those things just about working with each other and so on. The bit about staff that I have to mention is that some of the things that we will ask from you are advice for staff in how we do things, but you as a group cannot tell staff what to do. Councillor Bell, as an individual, can't tell staff what to do. The only person who can do that is council as a whole, and via the Chief Administrative Officer, Kim Buckham, who you'll meet at some point in the next couple of meetings, I'm sure. So oftentimes, if we're asking for your comments, it'll be a case of, okay, thanks, we're going to take that away and we'll look into that, or we'll see what we can do. But it might be an occasion when we bring a report that is going to say, okay, we want your input. And then we have to take that to council afterwards. And we still might say, no, our staff opinion, thinking about the whole of the municipality, is different to the committee's. We'll put exactly what the committee says, but we might say, no, it's a bit different. And so this is what we recommend instead. And that's just important because I want everybody to be on the same page and not be upset if there's any moment where sort of something isn't quite exactly what you hoped it would be when it gets as far as council. I think the only other ones I want to highlight here is we obviously want diverse viewpoints. So we want to hear from as many different types of people, different members of the community. We want you to have different opinions. So there may be times when we do disagree, and so but let's have some respect for those diverse viewpoints. Represent your communities. I'm sure friends and family know that you're part of this, and so get their input and bring it to this table. And really, just we're looking for meaningful contributions. As Tony says, we want to hear you. Council wants to hear you. We wouldn't be doing this otherwise. And so, please do come ready to chat and give your input, because there's a lot of valuable knowledge around this table. Finally, if there is a complaint, as I say, the Integrity Commissioner investigates. There are some sanctions that can be put in place. Can be a formal reprimand from council, can require an apology, could be removed from the committee as a whole. These things are pretty extreme and rarely happen. And to be honest, I don't remember us having a committee-based investigation at any stage. So as long as we're all just having a good time, then all will be good. Any questions on any of that?
Yeah.
It's just
Your mic, Member Leslie. Yeah.
If you were talking about presenting the view of the committee, and then the staff may well say, but we have a different view. Will there be an opportunity in our committee meetings to have an engagement, say, with the staff member who may be representing that particular report, so that there is an opportunity in the committee discussion to bring in and consider, questions that might arise from staff?
absolutely. What will happen anytime there is a report coming to this committee, and the intent is that if there's something sustainability related that's going to council, it will come here first, except in urgent cases. When things are a little bit different, it'll come here first. And so if staff members written it, they'll be here to talk to you about it. On an odd occasion, it might be one of their colleagues because something else is occurring or they're away, but generally staff member will be here so you can talk to them and hear why they think it's that way, and they'll hear your opinion, and then that will help them go away and finalize that documentation before it comes to council. Oftentimes what comes to you will be pretty similar to what goes to council, because we're saying this is kind of what we're thinking. The committee either agreed or disagreed, and we changed our mind or didn't change our mind because of what the committee said, and then council will get to see that and make final decisions. So no, you'll hopefully see quite a range of different staff here over the months and years to come. One of the points of doing these pillar-based advisory committees is that there's lots of subjects that cross borders between these things. Yep. And so, you know, one of my big hopes is that some topics, maybe I'm writing something and I'm coming to get your opinion about it, but I'm also going and asking our growing our economy committee about it. And I'm also asking our strengthening our community committee about it, because you might all have slightly different views and different perspectives on it. And I think the beauty of doing this way is that then and so we'll be getting a couple of different perspectives on that one. And then the final one is probably the most obvious one for this group. It is a climate change mitigation and resiliency project. The municipality has done some basic work over the last few years about trying to lower our emissions, or LED lights in our streetlights and a lot of our buildings. But this project is really to pull together what the municipality can do to reduce our emissions, but also to encourage others to reduce theirs as well. The County of Grey has got a climate action plan, and we will be asking somebody from the county to come and talk to you about that. But part of this is that we intend to develop a municipal version of that, sort of a bit more on the micro scale of things that we can do. And I know that you guys will have some fantastic ideas and thoughts on what that might look like. Part of that is also going to be setting a goal for the municipality, because I think a target is something we can all get behind, and then we can really start measuring and moving forward. I think that's enough from me, but you might want to just if you wanted to chat about any of those, then let's go for it.
Leslie.
Yeah, it's quite interesting. Those last two, I can see what you mean, Matt, about them being a lot meatier. There's also overlap in a sense. So it'd be really interesting to spend some time on that. I'm not sure if you're aware, I'm sure you are, that the Grey County is currently working with 2 other municipalities on green development standards. So they're taking the lead again there, which hopefully will, I think the idea is to bring municipalities together so that we're all sort of singing from the same songbook when you're speaking with developers, but also helping to ensure that municipalities aren't each having to sort of reinvent the wheel, that there is something that's coming from Grey County.
That's right.
On. So, yeah. Thank you.
Rob, you have something?
No, I just totally agree. A lot of the time when I'm sitting here, I'm thinking we can't reinvent the wheel. There's so much time lost when everything starts from scratch. There's so much already being done out there that we can learn from, and I can't agree with you more on that. Yeah.
I quoted this at our new CAO, who's not from the municipal sector, yesterday, and the deputy mayor. Does anybody know what municipal R&D is? In a municipality, it's not research and development, it is rip off and duplicate.
Yeah. Yeah. It's really good from the aspect too. You all have heard we talked about development. So one of the things that I'm looking forward to from this group, and I'm just going to just put this little seed out there. We often hear developers and they'll say about, oh, what's our green space? People want green space. And someone like myself from the country and the farm, I take a comment like that, well, I've got a bush, I've got cricks, I've got these things. But there are folks when they live in the urban center, they look for that, and that's part of their mental health also. It's what they need to have for enjoyment. They need to kick back. And so one of the things, as Mr. Smith has said about council's priorities on a tree inventory. Well, when we have a developer and then he says, well, we're going to incorporate this, we need a little bit of green space. I think this committee can say, well, if you take out this tree because you need your hi-ho to put in that to pour the concrete, this is what this committee would like to see as a recommendation for what you need to put back, more than what was, and something more that's even nicer. And I have lately, for some reason, had gravitated to Western Canada in both the province of Alberta and Saskatchewan on the research which has been going on, and they're implementing grasslands. Huge impact on grasslands and carbon storage in the roots, not like a tree. And so when we say the word, we need a green space, can we think about what a grassland might look like, a walking meadow? Can we do that? And the cost to put something like that in is actually quite minimal. It's not a heavy impact. And yet it could make such a great difference to folks if they said, we went out here, we've got this little pathway, and it's all part of this new development's green space. I'm just putting that out there so you know where this chair is coming from. When I think about stuff and I sit and I watch some of these programs, and they've got dedicated areas now in Alberta and Saskatchewan. Both of them are in the south of their province, and they are just doing some incredible work. And in those cases, because it's very large expanses of land, they let animals in, cattle and bison and so on. But there's no agricultural, there's no turbines, it's reserved for grasslands. And I just was enthralled, and I hope you've got the fact that I really listened acutely to that, because if they can do a huge thing, can we do something small, but make it as a policy which becomes consistent? And I've got one thing that some very seasoned counselor told me when I was thinking about doing policies and policy changes. A good policy is a policy that can be applied equally in urban and rural environments. And if you can do that, you've got a Jim Dandy policy. So again, I'm doing a little bit here, but this is what this is all about. And I hope you're cracking some smiles here and we can roll up our sleeves, and all of these little things, you know what, they're going to add up into something really big and good. So, yeah. So now that I've said that, is there anything that I have said that's spurring you on? Member Carmen.
You're gonna
Yeah.
have to tell me to turn off my mic. That's really huge. And in fact, it's more of a problem in Ontario because we have far more diminishment of our grasslands because we don't have that sort of size. And many municipalities are looking at some of their larger parks and not mowing extensive areas or maintaining them as kind of maintained gardens. They're turning them into, in a sense, a small meadow, more wildflowers, the same sort of thing. Not only does it help to sequester carbon, but it's also helping because you're not spending the staff time and the fuel costs to do all the maintenance. So yeah, I think there's a huge need and some exciting opportunities for grasslands.
Thank you, Member Leslie. Some things that have happened, I said earlier on, my exposure with municipal things since 2014, and I said, oh, things have changed. I also am on the board at the Grey County Farm Safety. And someone came to that meeting and a community garden. They actually came to that committee because of the farming and agricultural background, and were making inquiries about a community garden. And community gardens are important, and that committee looked at the makeup. Most of us are still many generations of agriculturalists. We have people now who come who are absolutely amazed at getting into a garden, doing a furrow, putting in a corn, and looking at the stalk. It's the world is involved just right in front of their eyes, and they put the seed and they're getting back in touch. And some have been removed from the agricultural world 4 and 5 generations now. And again, someone like myself, I take that when they came to that farm safety meeting asking about putting in community gardens and would farm safety support something like that, I thought, agriculture, they're out of the loop a little bit. And I know that our municipality, community gardens, we've supported in the past. I think they're looking maybe for a new home, quite possibly. And I know that our council will support that, I'm pretty sure. But these are all of the dynamics when I said how I've seen how our citizenry is changing. There's new things, there's people who need to know, and there's people who do want to get involved. So, yeah. Are we ready then for maybe the next portion, Mr. Smith?
So, as my introduction said, I'm the project administrator for pump storage. So I made this short presentation as an overview, just to share some information, some details that might help you understand the project and know the process going forward and where that kind of intersects with the committee. So the project overview, TC Energy is proposing to build a 1,000 megawatt pump storage facility on the Canadian Forces Base in Meaford, utilizing the escarpment and Georgian Bay. This project will create a large-scale energy storage facility designed to have a storage capacity of 1,000 megawatts. Let me just figure out how to, there we go. So what is pump storage? We've been hearing a lot about it. So that was something that one of the first details that I think is important to know is that it's a type of hydroelectric power generation used for storage and managing energy. Involves moving water between 2 reservoirs at different elevations to store and generate electricity. So what does that mean and how does it work? So during times of low electricity demand, aka off-peak hours, excess electricity from other sources like wind and nuclear is used to pump water from a lower reservoir, which would be Georgian Bay in this case, to a higher elevation reservoir, which is proposed to be constructed on the base. During times of high electricity demand, peak hours during the day, the stored water is released back to the lower reservoir, Georgian Bay, passing through turbines to generate electricity for the grid. Next is how Meaford is approaching the project. So we are taking a made in Meaford approach, which consists of these different aspects to ensure it aligns with our community's needs, values, and interest. Our approach emphasizes local input to maximize areas such as economic and social benefits, for example, job creation and community investment, all while ensuring the environment is protected. This work will ultimately provide the foundation for a community benefits agreement between the municipality and TC Energy that supports Meaford's long-term vision and sustainable development goals, ensuring it is tailored to the local area. We also have a pump storage advisory committee, which has been established, whose meetings are open to attend at council chambers and occur every second Thursday of the month at 5 p.m. Go back. I accidentally. There we go. So to speak to some of these points here, Ainley Group is our project manager consultants, and then Strategy Corp would be our community benefits negotiator consultants. Next. So these are areas of research that have been identified. The ones that are categorized on the left are ones that might be of interest to this committee. And then the ones on the right are other areas that have also been identified, but kind of separated them here for ease of view. So in order for the municipality of Meaford to understand how this project will impact us, we'll undertake an independent technical review process, as well as a community engagement and learning process related to TC Energy's project. Meaford has retained the Ainley Group as the project managers, but also to peer review TC Energy studies to confirm the findings are valid. Moving forward into what the process looks like. So if this project should proceed, a provincial environmental assessment will occur. The Ontario Environmental Assessment will play a crucial role in determining TC's proposed project and if it can go ahead. This process will evaluate the potential environmental impacts, including effects on local ecosystems, water quality, and wildlife in Georgian Bay and surrounding areas. So by doing these detailed studies and talking to the public, the environmental assessment process ensures that any environmental concerns are identified, addressed, and lead to the implementation of necessary mitigation measures. Successful completion of the environmental assessment process is essential for obtaining the required regulatory approvals, which will ultimately influence the project's timeline, design, and operations. The next step in the regulatory process is the federal impact assessment. So this is just a very simple diagram of how the stages kind of play out and the key participants in each process. So the Environmental Impact Assessment Agency website has a lot of different resources. So highly recommend, if you're looking to learn more about it, then that's a great place to check out. But basically what happens here in this process, its goal is to evaluate how TC Energy's pumped storage project might affect the environment, the people, and the economy in this area. This process will carefully look at how the project might impact federal lands, water, Indigenous communities, and different types of plants and animals. It will also talk to important groups, including the municipality of Meaford, its residents, and to do detailed studies to make sure the project aligns with Canada's environmental standards and regulatory requirements. So successful completion of this process is essential for obtaining any federal approvals, which will influence, again, the project's design, implementation, and long-term sustainability. And that is the overview. It's what we know currently, and it's the information on the process. But if there are any questions that we can help answer, we are pretty, yeah, we'll try our best, but I think there's still a lot to learn, and these processes haven't started yet. So, yeah.
Member Leslie?
Thanks. Just when you said if the project proceeds, it will go on to the provincial environmental assessment. I kind of missed in what you were saying. What makes the decision to proceed to the environmental assessment? So Is that question clear? I'm not-
It is.
Okay.
Yes.
The answer isn't clear, but I think I can give it a decent one. In essence, the decision on whether to go to the environmental assessment and the impact assessment, because they'll likely happen in fairly parallel or slightly offset, is for TC Energy to decide. But our understanding is that they are currently waiting to make that decision until they get an approval from the Ministry of Energy for the actual energy production and consumption once this is built, because they don't want to invest the money in doing the assessments if they're not going to have sort of the Minister of Energy on board. So we're very much at a stage right now where we're kind of in a bit of a slowdown because we're waiting to see what happens.
Thank you. So far has been transpiring or on this subject by itself? If I can put you on the spot to hit your button, and you have.
Well, thanks for the opportunity. There's not a lot of mention of the financial end of the project, which has been rejected by the IESO as far as the project goes, but I think we have to focus on that a lot too as we go forward. If it's a good project and it's going to be good for Meaford, I'm behind it, and if it's not, and my position has been questioning it to some degree. So there's a lot of discussion. I think this committee could certainly have some good input. And just increase our knowledge of the project. So.
Thank you, Member Pat.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay.
One thing that I hope that you also get a good feeling on is that we also have an advisory committee. Maybe some of you even put your names forward to serve on that. So this current council and really under the directorship of Mayor Kentner, the reaching out to engage people, that was one of the key elements I know that now Mayor Kentner ran on when he wished to be elected as mayor, that he really wanted to make sure that there was engagement with people, because we often sometimes feel that people say to us, nobody's listening. Does anybody really care? And you get sort of in a downtrend. And Mayor Kentner basically, we don't have to have an advisory committee on this, but it is of such great importance. All members of council wanted that to happen. We need to hear. We formed a committee, and as Mr. Smith has said, there is going to be some degree of overlap on subject matter. And I think all that's going to do is it's going to make for a unifying voice of what the people think. And when we get that again, all that's going to be positive. So there's a lot in your presentation, only you put it down to a few pages, but what's interesting, I'm looking at maybe it's your second last page, or yes, it is, before you have the page that has questions. A little symbol there that says other jurisdictions. Just under that symbol, how much magnitude that on its own can mean. Just the words other jurisdictions. And I know early on, just on that subject of the pump storage, I, like many members of council, have been keeping quite a collection on information, and I have the original handout from the very first public engagement from the corporation, and I looked at that and I didn't happen to see the line that says Municipality of Meaford, but now we see, as this thing is growing, it's changing and evolving, and the dynamics, your little symbol, other jurisdictions, happens to be that we are included and our voice does matter also. So it's really important. It's one of the big subject matters. But as I said, when we do things about our air and our wind and things and policies that we have, I'm just asking right front on this initial meeting that we always also try to keep that it's for the municipality. If we put something there, what's that going to do down in Bogner? Well, what's going to happen out at Leith? What's going to go on over here, to the Blue Mountains? Like a policy for the municipality. And I think you're nodding and that's good. I'm going to put you on the spot. Do you mind being put? I hope you don't, because I'm inclined to want to do that, Carmen. You have been sitting very quietly and you've been taking some notes and what do you think so far as you've heard some presentations now and with you actually sitting in the chair and you're going to be part of this vibrant advisory committee?
I think it's a really special thing that we have the opportunity to create green energy. But as a sustainability advisory, I think we need to come up with a recommendation to see if this is actually something that's sustainable for our municipality and our community. And also making a recommendation on regulations on how to, like, we need to do research on how it's going to affect the water and how it's going to affect us longer term, because a short-term solution is okay, but we want something that's sustainable for future generations in the future of Meaford. So
Am I ever glassed? I asked you. That's excellent. You see what's going to happen here? It's going to be just this. This is going to be a really great advisory committee. And thank you. I hope you don't mind being put on the spot. Yeah. So whereabouts are we now, Mr. Smith, and our first meeting?
Well, I think we're on the communications bit of the agenda, and of course we don't have any yet because this is our first one. So really, just to confirm the date of the next meeting, which is planned to be August the 7th. And then really up to you, Mr. Chair, if you're ready to adjourn or if there's anything else you want to touch on.
No, our next meeting, I have jotted down here that it's August the 7th. Is that confirmed that that's the correct one? That's what I jotted down. Again at 2 o'clock and here. Okay, so unless any member has anything else for maybe some quick closing comments, fellow Councillor Forder, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and through you. I think the theme that I've been observing from this meeting, from everybody's comments, is the word opportunity. And in this municipality, I think we have a lot of opportunity to do a lot of really impactful things. And that applies to all the advisory committees, not just us. So it's great that we have residents who are actively involved and motivated and want to take advantage of the opportunity that exists in this municipality to do all the things we can to make this municipality better for now and for the future. So my motivation is running 100 miles an hour right now, being with you guys. I've got 1,000 things going in my head, but I can only say good things about this meeting so far. And I'm very encouraged to see where we go from here. And we'll keep the communication going between now and August, and looking forward to doing some really good things together. So well done, everybody.
Thank you. Yeah, I recognize you, Member Pat.
Just to give us maybe something to think about between now and the next meeting. When I lived in Caledon, we had a little 2-acre property on the Credit River, and the municipality in Caledon, and maybe it was Niagara Escarpment or the Credit River Valley Association, I don't know who, but if we kept a certain amount of land in the wild or in the natural environment, we got a tax break. And it was so we took advantage of that. And I know building here in Meaford up in the Whitelaw subdivision on top of Grade 07, we've got over 2 acres, and I've probably put half of that into a lawn, but the rest I've got in a short grass environment. I've got another section just growing wild, and then I'm cutting out in the forested section, I'm cutting out the invasive trees and opening that forest up to recover. So it might be an idea that maybe if they're having a tax break for me doesn't make me want to do it or not want to do it. But I think for some of the people that are moving here, people coming from urban centers, like you say, might be a different type of incentive to throw at people.
I appreciate that, Member Pat. And I might have had a jovial reaction to doing a cut I mean, taxes are a reduction, but you know what? The word sustainability also says is we've been having taxes at a certain rate for a long period of time, and can we continue to do that? Here we go. So all of these things are all tied together, aren't they? With that, I do want to thank each of you for your attendance here today. And I want to thank staff for what you have done so far in pulling this together. With our first meeting between you, Mr. Smith, and Alex, putting it together to get a feeling for where I would be at as the chair and how we are thinking and where our minds would be at. And thank you for your presentation on where we're at with pump storage. And thank everyone. I wish everyone to have a good afternoon. And with that, I will call this meeting adjourned. Thank you.